I was standing in front of the fridge when I heard the scream, "Don't even think about touching that food. Mark's family is coming for dinner." I froze. The block of Armstrong cheddar was still in my hand. I looked back and saw my daughter, Sarah, standing in the kitchen doorway. Her arms were crossed. Her gaze was hard. Her mouth was pressed into a thin line. I did not recognize. I had filled that fridge just hours before. I had spent almost $350 of my own money at Loblaws. I had carried the heavy bags from the car into the kitchen at 69 years old, with my knees that creak every time I climb the stairs, with my back that aches every morning when I get up. But I did not say any of that. I just looked at her, and I waited for her to explain, for her to tell me it was a joke, for her to laugh and hug me like she did when she was a little girl. But she did not. If my wife said so, that's how it is. The voice came from the hallway. It was Mark, my son-in-law, the man my daughter chose to share her life with. Tall, always well-dressed in his Bay Street suits, always with that smile that never reaches his eyes. He walked over and put his hand on Sarah's shoulder, a possessive gesture like marking territory. I was still holding the cheese. "Mom, you heard me. I need you to not touch anything in the fridge. Anything. My in-laws will be here in 2 hours and I cannot just serve them anything. This is important to me." His in-laws, her husband's family, more important than me, more important than the woman who gave birth to her, who fed her when she was a baby, who stayed up 1,000 nights when she had a fever, who sold her own jewelry to pay for her university. "I understand, honey." That was the only thing I said, because something inside me broke in that moment. It was not a loud break. There was no explosion or shouting. It was silent, like when a dry branch snaps in the -20-degree cold, an almost imperceptible crack, but final. I put the cheese back in the fridge. I closed the door slowly. I wiped my hands on my apron and I smiled. I smiled because in that moment, I understood something. I understood that my daughter no longer saw me as her mother. She saw me as an obstacle, as someone who was in the way, as someone to get rid of. And I smiled because I decided that if they were going to treat me this way, then I would also make my own decisions. "I'm going to my room. Enjoy your dinner." I walked toward the stairs. I felt their eyes on my back, but I did not turn around. I climbed each step with my back straight, with my head held high. Even though inside everything was trembling, I got to my room and closed the door. I sat on the edge of the bed, the same bed where I slept with my husband David for 30 years, where I cried when he died 10 years ago, where I was left alone, completely alone until Sarah convinced me to come live with her in Oakville. "This is your home too, Mom. You'll always have a place with us." That is what she told me 2 years ago when I sold my small house in Hamilton to help her with the down payment on this one. When I put all my money, $150,000, into this property that was supposedly for both of us, for the family to have a place to be together. Lies. It was all lies. I got up and walked to the window. From there, I could see the backyard, the peonies that I planted myself, the small apple tree I planted when I moved in, the pots of herbs I tend to every morning. I did all of that with my hands, with my effort. Downstairs, I heard laughter, music, the doorbell. The in-laws had arrived. I heard Sarah greet them with that sweet voice she no longer used with me. I heard Mark offer them drinks. I heard the clatter of plates, the tinkling of glasses, and I was upstairs in my room like a child being punished, as if I had done something wrong. But my only crime was buying the food they were now enjoying. I sat in my chair by the window, the one I brought from my old house in Hamilton, the only piece of furniture Sarah allowed me to keep. Everything else we sold or gave away because, according to her, this house had its own style, and my old things did not match. I took my cell phone out of my pocket. I looked at it for a moment. I thought about calling my sister Jean in Alberta, telling her what had happened, but what was I going to say? That my own daughter had forbidden me from eating in my own house? It would sound ridiculous. It would sound like I was exaggerating, like I was some dramatic old woman looking for attention. I put the phone away, and I just sat there staring out the window, watching the Ontario sky grow dark. Hours passed. I heard when the in-laws left. I heard when Sarah and Mark went up to their room. I heard when everything fell silent. Then I went downstairs carefully, without making a sound. The house was dark, except for the small light over the stove. I walked to the kitchen. I saw the dirty dishes piled in the sink, The glasses with traces of wine, the leftovers on the table, my food, the food that I bought, that I paid for, and of which I had not had a single bite. I opened the fridge. I looked for something to eat, but it was almost empty. They had eaten almost everything. There were just some leftovers in plastic containers. I took one. It was rice. Cold. I ate it just like that, standing in front of the open fridge, with the light illuminating my tired face. And as I ate that cold leftover rice, I understood something else. I understood that this was not new. This had been happening little by little, so slowly that I did not notice. Like the frog in gradually heating water, who does not jump because it does not perceive the danger until it is too late. The small slights, the comments, the looks, it had all been part of a plan to push me into a corner, to make me feel like I was in the way, that I was a burden, that I should be grateful just to have a roof over my head. But that roof was also mine. I put $150,000 down to buy it. Everything I had saved, everything my husband and I had scraped together for years. I gave it to Sarah because I trusted her, because she was my daughter, because I thought she would take care of me like I had taken care of her. I closed the fridge. I washed the empty container. I put it away. I cleaned up every trace that I had been there, like a ghost, like someone who does not have the right to exist in her own home. I went back to my room. I lay down, but I could not sleep. I was thinking all night, remembering, putting the pieces together. The last 6 months had been strange. Sarah would ask me to sign papers that were supposedly from the bank. Refinancing paperwork, Mom, just sign here, boring things I did not really understand. And I signed because I trusted, because she was my daughter. But now I wondered what exactly I had signed. What were those documents? Why was Sarah always in such a hurry? Why could I never read them carefully? I got up before dawn. I left my room without making a sound. I went downstairs to the living room. I looked in the desk where Sarah keeps the important papers, but it was locked. I looked for the key in the obvious places, but I could not find it. So, I went to my room and got my box of personal documents. I looked for the original deed to the house, the document that proved I put my money in here, that this house was also mine. It was not there. The deed was not where I had left it. I looked through every paper, in every folder. Nothing. It had disappeared. And in that moment, I knew. I knew with total certainty. I had been robbed. My own daughter had robbed me. Not just of my dignity, not just of my peace, but of my money, my future, my security. I sat on the floor of my room with all my papers scattered around me, and I did not cry. I did not scream. I did not make a scene, because I understood that crying would not give me anything back. That screaming would only make me look like a crazy old woman, that no one would believe me if I started making accusations without proof. So, I decided something else. I decided I was going to be smart. I was going to investigate. I was going to get back what was mine. But silently, without anyone realizing, without warning them that I had already discovered their betrayal, I put all my papers back. I washed my face. I combed my hair. I got dressed just like any other day. And when Sarah came downstairs for breakfast, I was already in the kitchen making coffee. "Good morning, Mom." "Good morning, honey. Did you sleep well?" "Yes, very well, thanks." She smiled. A perfect smile, as if nothing had happened, as if she had not humiliated me the night before, as if she had not stolen everything from me. And I smiled back, because now I knew how to play her same game. The game of silence, the game of patience, the game of waiting for the exact moment to act. I served her coffee. I made her favorite breakfast. I asked her about her plans for the day. I acted like the perfect mother, like the submissive woman she wanted me to be. But inside, I was already planning. I was already thinking about every step, every move, about how I was going to get my life back, my house, my dignity. Because, if I have learned anything in 69 years, it is that revenge is a dish best served cold, very cold, and I had all the time in the world to prepare it. There are moments in life when you wonder at what exact moment everything started to change. At what precise instant the person you loved turned into someone you do not recognize. I asked myself that question many times in the following days, and I always came to the same conclusion. It had all started long before I wanted to admit. Sarah was born when I was 26 years old. It was a difficult pregnancy. I was on bed rest for the last 4 months. My husband David worked double shifts at the steel plant in Hamilton to make up for my lost wages. We were young, we had dreams, we had plans, and when she was born, everything seemed to make sense. She was a beautiful baby, with big dark eyes, with a smile that lit up any room. I cared for her as if she were made of glass. I fed her, I bathed her. I sang her lullabies my mother had taught me. David adored her. He would come home tired from work, but always found the energy to play with her, to make her laugh. I remember when she took her first steps. I was in the kitchen making dinner. She held on to the edge of the sofa and pushed herself forward. She took 3 wobbly steps before falling onto her bottom. But she had done it, and I cried with happiness. I called David at the plant to tell him. He left early that day just to see her walk again. We were happy. We did not have much money. We lived in a small 2-bedroom apartment. The furniture was old, the carpet was worn, but it was our home, and that was enough. When Sarah turned 5 years old, she started kindergarten. I got a part-time job at a bakery to help with the expenses. David was still at the plant. We worked hard. We saved what we could. We dreamed of buying a house one day, of giving Sarah everything we never had. She was a good student. She brought home good grades. She was in the school plays. She had friends. She was a normal, happy kid. Or so I thought. Because now when I look back, I see things I did not see then. Little details I ignored, because I did not want to see problems where I believed there were none. Like when she was 8 years old and I asked her to share her toys with our neighbor's daughter. She refused. She put all her toys in her room and locked the door. I thought it was just a phase, that all children go through selfish stages. I talked to her. I explained the importance of sharing. She nodded, but she never shared her things. Or like when she was 12 years old and found $100 I had hidden in a drawer for emergencies. She asked if she could buy a dress she had seen at the store. I told her no. That money was for something important. She got angry. She did not speak to me for 3 days. And when she finally spoke to me again, it was as if nothing had happened. But the money was gone. I never found it. And she never mentioned it. I should have seen it then. I should have paid more attention. But I was so busy working, so tired at the end of the day, so focused on surviving that I missed the signs. David died when Sarah was 19 years old. A massive heart attack while he was at work. He collapsed in the middle of his shift. By the time he got to the hospital, it was too late. I got the call at 3:00 inches the afternoon. My life split in two that day, a before and an after, a world with David and a world without him. Sarah did not cry at the funeral. That surprised me. She was serious, quiet, but her eyes were dry, no tears. I asked her if she was okay. She said yes. She was just processing it all, that she would cry later, but I never saw her cry for her father. The following years were difficult. David's life insurance was modest, enough to pay for the funeral and leave a little in savings. I kept working at the bakery, but now I also cleaned houses on the weekends. I needed money for Sarah's university. She wanted to get a business degree, a BCom. It was an expensive major, but I was willing to do whatever it took. I sold David's tools. I sold his car. I sold some jewelry I had tucked away. All of it to pay her tuition, to buy her books, to give her money for transportation and food. I ate less. I wore the same clothes for years. I did not buy anything unnecessary for myself. Everything was for her. Everything. During university, Sarah only came home when she needed money. She would call, say she had unexpected expenses, that she needed to pay for a project, that there was a special fee, and I gave her what she asked for without questions, without doubting, because she was my daughter, because I thought I was investing in her future. She graduated with honors. I was at the ceremony, proud, moved, crying with happiness. It had been worth it. All the sacrifice had been worth it. Or so I thought. She got a job quickly, a big Bay Street company, a good salary. She told me that now she was going to take care of me, that it was her turn to look after me, that everything I had done for her she would now repay multiplied. And I believed her, because I wanted to believe her, because I needed to believe my sacrifice had meant something. But the months passed and nothing changed. She kept asking for money, for a certification course, for a work trip, for professional clothes. And I kept giving, because that is who I was, that is who I had always been, the giver, the one who sacrifices, the one who puts everyone else before herself. She met Mark at work. She introduced him to me 6 months after they started dating. He was polite, well-dressed. He came from a family with money, a Rosedale family. He worked at the same company as her. He seemed like a good man, and I was happy for her. I thought she had finally found someone who would make her happy. They got married the next year, a big wedding in an elegant ballroom with over 200 guests. I paid my share, $20,000 that I took from my savings. Sarah said it was the least I could do, that the groom's family was paying for much more, that she could not look bad, and I paid, even though that $20,000 represented years of work, years of sacrifice. At the wedding, she barely saw me. She was busy with her in-laws, with the important guests. With me, she barely exchanged 2 words. She introduced me as her mother and moved on, as if I were just a requirement, an obligation, something to check off a list. The first months of marriage, they lived in a small apartment. I would visit them on Sundays. I brought food. I cleaned up a bit. I helped however I could. But I always felt like I was in the way, that I was an intrusion, that they would have preferred I did not come. Then they started talking about buying a house. Mark wanted something bigger, something in a better neighborhood, but they did not have enough money for the down payment. They needed $150,000. And they looked at me. "Mom, you have savings, right? Could you lend us the money for the house? We'll pay you back little by little, with interest if you want. And besides, you could live with us. You wouldn't have to be alone anymore. It would be perfect. A family again." That is what Sarah told me. And I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe she was including me in her life, that she was giving me a place in her home, that she finally valued me. I sold my house, the small house David and I bought after years of saving, the house where we raised Sarah, where we were happy. I sold it, and I gave her all the money, the full $150,000. She promised to put my name on the deed. She promised the house would be for both of us, that I would have my own room, my own space, that I would always be welcome. And I signed everything they put in front of me because I trusted, because she was my daughter. But now I understand that was my doom. The exact moment where I lost everything, where I stopped being the owner of my own life, where I became an unwanted guest in what should have been my own home. The first few months in the new house were tolerable. Sarah still kept up appearances. She greeted me in the mornings. She included me in some conversations. She let me cook and participate in household decisions. But there was something strange, something I could not quite identify. An invisible tension that hung in the air every time I entered a room. Mark worked late. He would come home tired and lock himself in his study. Sarah spent hours on her phone. I kept myself busy, cleaning, cooking, tending the garden, trying to be useful, trying to justify my presence in this house that was also mine, though it felt less so every day. One day, I found some papers on the dining room table. They were bank documents. I saw them by chance while I was cleaning. It was not my intention to read anything private, but my name appeared on one of the pages, and that caught my attention. It was a document about the house's mortgage. I read it quickly, trying to understand. There were numbers, legal terms I did not quite grasp, but one thing was clear. My name was not on the deed as an owner. It only appeared as a reference, as someone who had contributed money, but not as an owner. I felt something cold run through my body. I picked up the paper with trembling hands. I read it again, slower, trying to find my name in the list of owners, but it was not there. Only Sarah Reyes and Mark Reyes. No one else. I heard footsteps on the stairs. I quickly put the paper back where it was and continued cleaning. Sarah entered the living room. She looked at me with that expression she had started to use with me, that mix of annoyance and superiority. "What are you doing, Mom?" "Just cleaning, honey. Just cleaning." She took the papers from the table and left without another word. I stayed there standing, with the cleaning rag in my hand, with my heart racing, with 1,000 questions in my head. I could not sleep that night. I kept turning over what I had seen. Maybe I had misunderstood. Maybe my name was on other documents, on the original deed. Sarah had promised she would include me, that the house would be for both of us. She would not lie to me. She could not lie to me. But the seed of doubt was planted, and like a weed, it began to grow, to spread, to poison every thought. The following days, I started paying more attention, noticing things I had overlooked before, like the time Sarah asked me to sign papers without letting me read them properly. She would say they were just bank formalities, renewals, boring things not worth reviewing. And I signed trustingly, because she was my daughter. But now those signatures haunted me. What had I signed exactly? What were those documents? Why was there always such a rush? Why could I not take my time to read? One afternoon, while Sarah was at work, I searched the desk in the living room. I needed to find the deed to the house. I needed to see my name on it. I needed to confirm that everything was fine, that I was just being paranoid. But the desk was locked. I looked for the key in the obvious places. In the kitchen drawer, on the bookshelf, on the entryway shelf. Nothing. The key was nowhere. I tried to pick the lock with a paperclip, with a bobby pin, but it did not work. The desk remained closed, guarding its secrets, protecting them from me. Then I remembered that I had my own copy of documents. When I sold my house, I kept everything in a special box. Important papers, my marriage certificate with David, his death certificate, payment receipts, and supposedly the deed to this house, the proof that I had put my money here. I went up to my room. I pulled the box out from under my bed. I opened it with shaking hands. I searched through all the papers. I checked every document, every folder, every envelope. The deed was not there. It simply was not where I had left it. In its place was a receipt, a confirmation that I had transferred $150,000 to Sarah's account, but nothing else. No document proving my ownership of the house. I sat on the floor with all the papers scattered around me, trying to remember when was the last time I saw that deed. Where had I put it? Who else had access to my room? And then I understood. Sarah had a key to my room. I had given it to her myself, so she could come in to clean when I was not there. So she could use the bathroom if hers was occupied. I never thought she would use it to steal from me. But now it was obvious. She had come in. She had gone through my things. She had taken the only document that protected me, and she had destroyed it or hidden it or whatever she did with it. I put all the papers back in the box. I closed it. I hid it in a different place, in the back of my closet, behind old boxes where no one would think to look. That night, Sarah came home late from work. She was carrying a bag from Holt Renfrew, new clothes, shoes, things that cost hundreds of dollars. I watched her unpack everything in her room, tearing off tags, trying things on in front of the mirror, happy, carefree. And I thought about my $150,000, about how that money represented years of my life, years of work, of sacrifice, of getting up early and going to bed late, of eating little to save more, of buying nothing for myself, of living with the bare minimum, all to have security, to have something of my own, to not be a burden to anyone. And now that money was paying for her expensive clothes, her comfortable life, her big house, while I had nothing, just a room they could take away from me whenever they wanted, just a place at a table where I was less and less welcome. I went down to the kitchen to make myself some tea. I needed to calm my nerves. I needed to think clearly. I put water on to heat. I got out my favorite mug, the one I brought from my old house, a simple white ceramic mug with hand-painted flowers. David gave it to me on our first anniversary. I was waiting for the water to boil when Mark came into the kitchen. He looked at me in that way he had started to, as if I were something in his way, as if my very presence bothered him. "Margaret, I need to talk to you." I turned to him. I waited for him to continue. "Sarah and I have been thinking. This house is very expensive to maintain. The utilities, the property taxes, everything is going up. And well, you live here, but you don't contribute anything. You eat our food, you use our electricity, our water, it all comes out of our pocket." His words hit me like buckets of cold water. Me, who had just filled the fridge with $350. Me who cleaned the entire house, who cooked, who tended the garden, who did everything I could to not be a burden. But I did not say any of that. I just looked at him, waiting for him to finish. "So, we think it would be fair if you paid something. A monthly rent. Not much, just $800 to help with the expenses. It's really the minimum. Any room in Oakville costs double that. $800. To live in the house I helped buy. In the house where I put all my money. In the house that was supposedly also mine. Of course, Mark, I'll think about it." "There's not much to think about, Margaret. It starts next month. Sarah will give you the details." He poured himself a glass of water, drank it slowly, watching me as if waiting for me to say something, to protest, to refuse. But I remained silent, motionless, with my empty mug in my hands. When he left, I turned off the stove. I did not want tea anymore. I did not want anything. I just wanted to go to my room, to lock myself in, to process everything that was happening. I went up the stairs. Each step felt heavier than the last. I entered my room. I closed the door. I sat on my bed. And for the first time in a long time, I let the tears come. I cried silently, with my face in my hands, my body shaking. I cried for my naivety, for my stupidity, for having trusted so much, for having given everything without protecting myself, for having believed that a mother's love was enough. But after a while, the tears dried up, and something else took their place. Something cold, something hard, something I did not know I had inside me. Rage, but not the hot rage that makes you scream, the cold rage that makes you think, the rage that plans, that waits, that acts at the precise moment. I got up. I washed my face. I looked at myself in the mirror. I saw a 6'9" woman, tired, wrinkled, with gray hair but with eyes wide open, with determination. I was not going to stand by and do nothing. I was not going to let them rob me like this. I was not going to let them treat me like garbage. I had given too much. I had sacrificed too much. And now it was time to get back what was mine. The following days were strange. I kept doing everything as usual. I got up early. I made breakfast. I cleaned the house. I tended the garden. But something inside me had changed. I no longer did it with love. I did it with strategy. Every movement was calculated, every word measured, every smile fake. Sarah did not notice anything. Or maybe she did not care. She went on with her life, with her job, with her outings, with her shopping. She treated me like a piece of furniture, something that was there but deserved no attention. And I let her think that, because it suited me, because I needed them to lower their guard. I started to observe everything more carefully. Their schedules, their routines. When did they leave? When did they come back? Where did they keep important things? What conversations did they have when they thought I was not listening? One morning, while I was cleaning the living room, I found Sarah's phone on the sofa. She had forgotten it when she rushed off to work. I looked at it for a moment. I knew her password. I had seen her type it in hundreds of times. 4 simple numbers, their wedding date. I picked up the phone. I unlocked it. My hands were shaking, but my mind was clear. I went into her messages. I looked for conversations with Mark, with her friends, with her in-laws. I read quickly, taking mental notes of everything. There was a chat with her friend Jen. Recent messages. I read them with a racing heart. I'm almost done getting my mom off the deed. The lawyer says it'll all be finalized in 2 weeks. Finally, I'll be able to sell this place and buy something in Lorne Park without her being able to claim anything. The words hit me like fists. I read the message again and again and again, trying to process what I was seeing. She had not just removed me from the deed. She was planning to sell the house I helped buy, and buy another one where I would have no rights at all. I kept reading. There were more messages from weeks ago. My mom is so naive. She signs anything I put in front of her, doesn't even read it. Now just one more document, and that's it. Problem solved. Problem. I was a problem to her. Her own mother. The woman who gave birth to her, who raised her, who sacrificed her whole life for her. I was just a problem that needed to be solved. I took photos of all the messages with my own phone. My hands were shaking so much that some came out blurry, but I took several of each one. I needed to have proof. I needed to document everything. There was another chat with someone named Trevor Vance, a name I did not recognize. I opened the conversation. Mrs. Reyes, as I mentioned last week, we've processed the documents you brought in. Your mother signed the waiver of rights to the property. Everything is in order. We just need her to sign one last paper, and the process will be complete. You can stop by the office whenever you like. A lawyer. She had gone to a lawyer. She had fabricated documents. She had made me sign my own condemnation, and I did not even know it. I wrote down the lawyer's name, his phone number, the address of his office that appeared in the chat, everything, every detail, every word. I kept checking. There were photos, scanned documents, copies of papers I had signed without reading, contracts, waivers, assignments of rights, all there on her phone like trophies of her betrayal. I took photos of everything, one by one, making sure they were clear, that every word was legible. This was gold. This was what I needed to prove what they had done to me. I heard a car in the driveway. My heart stopped. I looked out the window. It was the neighbor. I kept checking the phone. I had little time. I did not know when Sarah would be back. I found a folder called Mom Documents. I opened it. There were copies of my ID, my birth certificate, the deed to my old house, the receipts for the money transfer. Everything they needed to rob me was right there, organized, filed like a criminal case file. And then I saw something else. A recent document, a listing for a new house in another neighborhood, bigger, more expensive, dated last week. They were already looking for a new place to move. They were already planning to leave me on the street. I took photos of everything. Then I cleared the call history and messages so she would not know I had been on her phone. I left it exactly where I found it, at the same angle, in the same position. I went up to my room. I closed the door. I sat on the bed. I connected my phone to my old computer, the one I brought from my old house. I transferred all the photos. I saved them in a hidden folder. I made copies on a USB drive I had stored away. I could not risk losing this evidence. As I transferred the files, I thought about everything I had seen. About how my own daughter had planned my destruction with such coldness, with such precision, as if I were just an obstacle in her path, something that had to be removed so she could move forward. I finished saving everything. I hid the USB drive in a safe place, inside a box of Tampax in my bathroom. No one would look there, especially not Mark. I went down to the kitchen. I put water on to heat. I made tea. My hands were not shaking anymore. My mind was strangely calm. Now I knew exactly what I was up against. I knew how deep the betrayal went, and that gave me power, because knowledge is power. And now I had both. That afternoon when Sarah got home from work, she was agitated. She was looking for something desperately. "Mom, have you seen my phone?" "No, honey." "Where did you leave it?" "I don't know. I had it this morning, but I can't find it." I helped her look. We checked the living room, the kitchen, her room. I acted concerned, supportive, like the perfect mother she thought I still was. "Here it is." It was between the sofa cushions. She grabbed it with relief. She quickly checked her messages, her calls. Everything seemed to be in order. She suspected nothing. Why would she? I was just her naive mother, the foolish old woman who signed whatever was put in front of her. "Thanks, Mom." "You're welcome, honey." She went to her room. I stayed in the living room, staring out the window, watching the sky grow dark, but I did not feel lost anymore. I did not feel like a victim. Now I knew exactly what to do. I spent the next few days researching. I looked up the lawyer, Trevor Vance, on the internet. I found his website. His office was half an hour away. I read about the services he offered: real estate, inheritances, contracts, exactly what Sarah needed to rob me. I also looked up information about my rights, about what I could do if someone had made me sign documents under false pretenses. I read legal articles, forums, testimonies from other people who had been through similar situations. I took notes. I saved links. I prepared. One afternoon, while Sarah and Mark were at work, I went to the bank, the same bank where we had gotten the mortgage for the house. I asked to speak with a representative. A young woman, about 30 years old, helped me. She had a professional smile. "Good morning, ma'am. How can I help you?" "I need information about a property. I am a co-owner, but I don't have a copy of the documents. I want to know how I can get them." She asked for my ID. I gave it to her. She typed something into her computer. She frowned. "Mrs. David Herrera, according to our records, you are not listed as an owner of any property." "That's impossible. I put $150,000 down for the down payment on a house. I have the transfer receipt." I showed her the receipt I had saved. She looked at it. She typed more into her computer. "I see the transfer here, but it was made in Sarah Reyes's name, not as part of a co-ownership agreement. It was a gift, a donation. Therefore, you have no rights to the property." Her words confirmed my worst suspicions. They had tricked me from the beginning. There was never any intention of putting me on the deed. It was all a plan to take my money. Is there anything I can do? You would have to consult with a lawyer, ma'am. We only handle the financial side, but if you sign documents waiving your rights, it will be difficult to get anything back. I thanked her. I left the bank. I walked to a bench in a nearby park. I sat down. I took a deep breath. The sharp November air filled my lungs. It cleared my mind. Now I knew 3 things for certain. First, I had been legally robbed. Second, I had proof of the conspiracy. Third, I needed a lawyer, a good one who was not on Sarah's side. I took out my phone. I searched for lawyers specializing in family fraud. I found several. I read reviews. I compared prices. I wrote down numbers. I would call the next day, because I was not alone in this anymore. Now I had information. I had proof. I had a plan. I walked back home slowly, thinking about every step, every move. Sarah and Mark were not home yet. The house was empty, silent, like a stage waiting for the play to begin, and I was ready to act, ready to get back what was mine, ready to teach them that they had underestimated the wrong person. The next day, I waited for Sarah and Mark to leave for work. I got dressed with care. I chose my best clothes, a simple but presentable dress. I combed my hair. I put on a little makeup. I wanted to look respectable, trustworthy, like someone who should be believed. I grabbed my purse. I packed all the evidence I had collected, the printed photos, the receipts, the USB drive with all the information from Sarah's phone, everything organized in a folder. I left the house and walked to the bus stop. The trip downtown took 40 minutes. I stared out the window the whole way, watching the streets pass by, the buildings, the people busy with their lives, and I thought about how my life had come to this point, how I had gone from having my own house to begging for justice. The lawyer's office I had found was in an old building. I climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor. My knees protested with every step, but I kept going, because this was important, because this was my future. I knocked on the door. A secretary greeted me. I explained that I needed an urgent legal consultation. She had me wait in a small room. There were old magazines on a table, cheap paintings on the walls, but the place looked clean, organized, professional. After 20 minutes, they called me. I entered an office where a man of about 50 years old was waiting for me. Graying hair, glasses, a simple suit. He motioned for me to sit down. "Mrs. Herrera, I'm Robert Miller. Tell me what brings you here." And I told him everything, from the beginning. How I sold my house, how I gave the $150,000, how they promised to put me on the deed, how they made me sign papers without reading them, how I discovered the betrayal. As I spoke, I took out all the documents, the photos, the proof. He listened in silence, taking notes, reviewing every paper I showed him. His expression was serious, focused. He did not interrupt me once. He let me pour out everything I had been holding in. When I finished, there was a long silence. He continued to review the documents, especially the photos of Sarah's messages. He read them several times. Then he looked at me. "Mrs. Herrera, this is fraud, breach of trust, possibly forgery of documents. Your daughter and son-in-law could face serious criminal charges. I just want my money back, or my rights to the house. Whatever is fair. I understand, but I need to be honest with you. This is going to be difficult. You signed documents waiving your rights. Even if you did it without fully understanding what you were signing, the fact is your signature is there. That complicates things. But I have proof they deceived me. The messages, the conversations, it's all there." "Yes, and that is good. Very good. This shows intent to defraud, premeditation. That helps us. We can file a lawsuit for fraud and nullification of documents. But I need you to understand that this can take time, months, maybe a year or more." My hopes sank a little. A year. Could I survive another year? In that house, enduring the contempt, the humiliation, paying rent for something that should be mine. How much will all this cost? My fee is $400 an hour. For a case like this, we're talking about approximately $30,000 in total, maybe more, depending on how complicated it gets. $30,000. I did not have it. I barely had $5,000 saved, the last of what I had left from a lifetime of work. He must have seen my expression, because he added, "I can do something for you, Mrs. Herrera. I can work with a $5,000 retainer, and the rest will settle when we win the case. When you get your money back. But I need to be clear. If we lose, you would still have to pay my full fee." It was a risk. But what choice did I have? Stay silent and lose everything, or fight and maybe get something back? I accept. What do you need me to do? First, I need you to sign a contract with me. Then, we are going to request copies of all documents related to the property from the Land Registry Office. We'll ask for certified copies of everything your daughter submitted, and we will prepare a formal complaint. How long does that take? About 1 month to gather everything. Then, we file the suit. Your daughter and son-in-law will be served. They will have to respond. That is when things will get interesting. They'll know it was me. They'll know I sued them. Yes, there's no way around that. But Mrs. Herrera, you have the right to defend yourself, to fight for what is yours. Don't let fear stop you now. He was right. I had already come this far. I had already discovered the truth. I had the proof. I could not turn back now. I signed the contract. I gave him a check for $5,000, almost everything I had in the bank. He gave me a copy of everything. He explained the next steps. He told me he would keep me informed of every development. I left his office feeling strange, scared, but also relieved. I had finally done something. I had finally taken action. I was no longer just a victim waiting for things to get better. Now I was a fighter. I made the trip back home in silence, thinking about what was to come, about how they would react when they received the lawsuit, what they would say, what they would do. I got home before them. I changed my clothes. I put all my documents in their secret hiding place. I started making dinner as if nothing had happened, as if it had been a normal day. When they arrived, I greeted them as always. Sarah barely looked at me. Mark did not even answer my greeting. We ate dinner in silence, each of us in our own world, and I watched. I saved every detail, every gesture of contempt, every moment of humiliation, because all of it gave me more strength to keep going. The following days were a waiting game. Mr. Miller called me every week to update me. He had requested the documents from the Land Registry Office. He was reviewing everything, preparing the legal strategy. He asked me to be patient. Meanwhile, I continued to document everything at home. Every time Sarah treated me badly, every comment, every slight, I started recording conversations on my phone, carefully without them noticing. I did not know if it would be legally admissible, but I wanted to have everything on record. One day, an envelope via registered mail arrived. It was from the Land Registry Office, documents the lawyer had requested. I grabbed it before anyone else saw it. I hid it in my room. That night, I opened it with trembling hands. Inside were copies of everything. The deed to the house with only Sarah's and Mark's names. The documents I had signed, waiving rights I did not even know I had. It was all there in black and white. The proof of my naivety, of my stupidity, of how they had used me. But there was also something else. Inconsistencies, dates that did not match up, signatures that looked different. The lawyer had marked several points with sticky notes. This is useful. We can use this possible forgery. I felt a spark of hope. Maybe there was a chance. Maybe I could win this. 3 more weeks passed. Mr. Miller summoned me to his office. When I arrived, he had everything prepared on his desk. A pile of organized papers, legal documents, the lawsuit ready. "Mrs. Herrera, we're ready. I'm filing the lawsuit tomorrow. In 2 or 3 days, your daughter and son-in-law will be served. I want you to be prepared for their reaction. It's not going to be pleasant. I know. I'm ready. I also need to warn you. It's possible they will try to intimidate you, to pressure you to drop the suit, to threaten to kick you out of the house. If that happens, you call me immediately. We have legal options to protect you." I thanked him. I left his office with a mix of fear and determination. In 2 days, everything would explode. In 2 days, there would be no turning back. I barely slept that night. I thought about all the possibilities, all the ways this could go wrong. But I also thought about justice, about getting my dignity back, about showing them they could not just rob me and get away with it. The lawyer filed the suit on a Friday. He called to confirm, "It's done, Mrs. Herrera. Now we just wait." The weekend was endless. Every time the doorbell rang, my heart hammered, but nothing happened. Sarah and Mark went on with their normal lives, oblivious to what was coming. On Monday morning, the mailman arrived. He rang the bell. I opened the door. He was holding 2 envelopes sent via registered mail, one for Sarah Reyes, one for Mark Reyes, lawsuit for fraud and nullification of documents. I signed for them. I took the envelopes. I looked at them for a long moment. This was it, the point of no return. I could hide them, throw them away, pretend they never arrived, or I could leave them where Sarah would find them and face the consequences. I left them on the dining room table, in a visible spot where they could not be missed, and I went up to my room to wait, to brace myself for the storm that was about to hit. Sarah got home from work at 6, 0 inches the evening. I heard her open the door. I heard her footsteps in the entryway, and then I heard the silence, that heavy silence that comes right before the explosion. "Mom, get down here, now." Her voice sounded different, tense, furious. But there was something else, too. Fear, maybe, or panic. I got up from my bed. I took a deep breath, and I walked down the stairs. She was standing in the living room, the open envelope in one hand, the lawsuit papers in the other. Her face was red, her eyes were blazing with rage. Mark was next to her, holding his own envelope, staring at me with pure hatred. "What is this? What the hell is this, Mom?" She spoke each word slowly, as if trying to control herself, as if she was about to snap. "It's a lawsuit for fraud, for stealing my money and my rights to this house." "Stealing? We didn't steal anything from you. You gave us that money. You signed all the documents. Everything was legal. You tricked me. You made me sign things without telling me what they were. You promised me this house would be mine too. And you lied to me. You're crazy. You're completely insane, old woman. Nobody forced you to do anything. You wanted to help, and now you pull this." "I have proof, Sarah. Messages, conversations, everything. Where you plan to sell this house and leave me on the street. Where you tell your friends I'm a problem, that you're getting me off the deed." Her face changed. The color drained from it for a moment. She looked at me with something that might have been fear, but she quickly disguised it with more rage. "You went through my phone. You went through my private things. That's an invasion of privacy, Mom. That's a crime. And stealing from your mother isn't? Deceiving her? Making her sign false documents? Taking everything she has? That's fine, according to you." Mark stepped forward. His face was hard, threatening. He stood very close to me, trying to intimidate me with his height. "Listen to me, Margaret. You are going to drop this lawsuit right now, or you are out of this house today, tonight, with nothing. We'll see where you live then. We'll see who takes you in. I'm not going anywhere. This house is also mine. I put my money into it, and I'm going to fight until I get it back. Your money. That money was a gift, a helping hand. Nobody forced you to give it, and now you come back demanding it like we're thieves. You are so ungrateful, after everything we've done for you. What you've done for me? You have me paying rent in my own house. You forbid me from eating the food I buy. You treat me like garbage. That's what you've done for me." Sarah laughed. A bitter, humorless laugh. "You know what, Mom? Do whatever you want. Sue us. Fight all you want. But I'm warning you, you won't win. We have better lawyers than you. We have money. We have time. And in the end, when you lose, you'll be left with nothing. No house, no money, no dignity. I don't have any dignity left. You two took it from me. But I'm going to get everything else back, even if it's the last thing I do. Go to your room. I don't want to look at you. You make me sick." Her words hurt, but I did not show it. I kept my face serious, my back straight, and I climbed the stairs without looking back. That night, I heard them call the lawyer Trevor Vance. I heard fragments of the conversation through the walls. They were scared, worried. The lawyer was telling them something they did not like. I heard Sarah scream. I heard Mark curse. I stayed awake late, listening, mentally documenting everything. This was only the beginning. I knew they would try something else, something worse, and I had to be ready. The following days were tense. Sarah and Mark barely spoke to me. When they did, it was to insult me, to remind me I was ungrateful, a traitor, a bad mother. But while they were attacking me, I noticed something interesting. Sarah kept posting on her Instagram photos at expensive restaurants, at spas, in clothing stores, smiling, posing, acting as if her life was perfect. Buying peace for my soul. Sometimes you have to distance yourself from negativity to be able to shine. That was one of her posts, with a photo of her drinking wine in a fancy place. 120 likes. Comments from her friends telling her how strong she was, how inspiring, how brave. And I thought about the irony, about how the negativity she mentioned was me, her mother, the woman who sacrificed everything for her. Now I was negativity to be distanced from. But I kept watching. I kept taking screenshots of every post, every comment, every display of her luxury life paid for with my money. One evening while they were out, Mr. Miller called. "Mrs. Herrera, I have news. Your daughter's lawyer filed a response to our suit. They deny everything. They say you gave the money voluntarily as a gift, that you signed all the documents knowingly, that you now have donor's remorse and want back what you already gave away. That's to be expected." What's next? Now comes the discovery phase. Both sides present all the evidence we have, documents, testimonies, proof. Then the judge decides if there's enough of a case to go to trial. How long does that take? 3 or 4 months minimum. But Mrs. Herrera, I have to tell you something important. Your daughter's lawyer contacted me. They want to negotiate an out-of-court settlement. What kind of settlement? They're offering to give you $30,000. In exchange, you drop the lawsuit and sign a document waiving any future rights to the property. $30,000. Out of the $150,000 I put in, not even a quarter. Exactly. It's a low offer, insulting even, but it's something, and it would avoid years of litigation, of stress, of legal fees. No, I don't accept. I want everything I'm owed, or my rights to the house. I'm not settling for less. I understand. I just wanted you to know the offer was on the table. But if you want to keep going, we'll keep going. We'll fight this to the end. That's what I want. To the end. I hung up, feeling strong, determined. They thought they could buy my silence with crumbs, that they could offer me a fraction of what they stole and I would gratefully accept. But they were wrong. That night at dinner, Sarah mentioned the agreement casually, as if it were a normal conversation. "Mom, our lawyer spoke to yours. We offered you $30,000 to end all this. You should take it. It's for the best." "I'm not taking it. I want what I'm owed." "You're not owed anything, Mom. We already told you. That money was a gift. But we're being generous. We're offering you something you're not even entitled to." "Then why are you offering it, if you're so sure I have no right to anything?" She fell silent. Mark stepped in. "Because we want to end this circus. Because it's embarrassing. Because you're making a fool of yourself. Take the money and go. Find a place to live and leave us alone." "I'm not leaving. And I'm not accepting less than I deserve." Sarah threw her fork down on her plate. The noise echoed in the silence. "You're impossible. You're stubborn and selfish. You've been this way your whole life, always thinking only of yourself. You never cared about anyone else." Her words took my breath away. How could she say that? How could she twist everything that way? Me, who sacrificed my whole life, who gave everything, who never asked for anything in return. And now I was selfish for wanting back what they stole from me. I did not answer. I got up from the table. I put my plate away and I went up to my room because I knew if I stayed, I would say things I might regret, things that could be used against me. The following weeks were more of the same. Them trying to pressure me, trying to get me to drop the suit, threatening to kick me out, to cut off services, to make my life impossible. And all the while, Sarah was on Instagram posting about her perfect life, about how she had learned to set boundaries, to protect her peace, to walk away from toxic people. I've learned that I don't owe anyone anything, not even family. My mental health comes first, and if that means cutting ties, then they get cut. No guilt, no regrets. Self-care, boundaries. That post got 200 likes. Her friends commented how proud they were of her, how strong she was, how mature. And I wondered if they knew the truth, if they knew the toxic person she was talking about was her mother, the woman who gave her life. But I kept going. I kept gathering evidence. I kept working with my lawyer. I kept preparing for what was to come, because I knew this was not over. that the worst was yet to come. And I was right. 3 months after filing the suit, the date for the first hearing arrived. Mr. Miller had prepared me for this moment. He explained what to expect, how to behave, what to say, and what not to say. But nothing could truly prepare me for how it felt to see my own daughter sitting on the other side of the courtroom. I arrived early. I wore my best clothes, a simple suit I had bought years ago for David's funeral. I combed my hair carefully. I wanted to look respectable, dignified, like someone telling the truth. Sarah arrived with Mark and their lawyer, Trevor Vance. She wore an expensive dress, designer shoes, perfect makeup. She looked successful, professional, like the victim of a problematic mother. Exactly the image she wanted to project. She did not look at me when she entered. Not once. She acted as if I were invisible, as if I did not exist, and that hurt more than any insult. The judge entered. We all rose. He was an older man in his 60s. With a serious face and thick glasses, he sat down and began to review the case files. All right, we are here for a lawsuit regarding fraud and nullification of documents. Mrs. Margaret Herrera versus her daughter Sarah Reyes and her son-in-law Mark Reyes. Mr. Miller, present your case. My lawyer stood up. He spoke with a clear, firm voice. He explained how I had sold my house, how I gave $150,000 for the purchase of the new property, how they promised to include me on the deed, how they made me sign documents without properly explaining what they were, how I discovered they were planning to sell the house without my knowledge. He presented the evidence, the messages I took from Sarah's phone, the documents with inconsistencies, the transfer receipts, everything organized, everything clear, everything damning. The judge reviewed each document carefully. He took notes. He asked questions. Mr. Miller answered with precision, with confidence. I was starting to feel hopeful. Then it was Mr. Vance's turn. He stood up with a confident smile, with calculated movements, as if he already knew he was going to win. Your Honor, this case is simple. Mrs. Herrera decided to help her daughter buy a house. She did so voluntarily. No one forced her. She signed all the necessary documents with full awareness of what she was doing. Now she has buyer's remorse, or rather donor's remorse, and wants back what she already gave away. That is not fraud, it's regret. He presented documents signed by me, papers where I supposedly waived my rights to the property. My signature was there, clear, undeniable. I felt dizzy seeing it, because I did not remember signing that. Furthermore, Your Honor, Mrs. Herrera has lived in the property rent-free for 2 years. She has enjoyed all the benefits of living in a $1.2 million house without contributing to the expenses. And now she has the audacity to sue her own benefactors. Benefactors. That word burned me, as if they had done me a favor, as if I were a beggar, grateful for the crumbs they fed me. The judge raised his hand to silence him. Mr. Vance, I am looking at text messages where your client clearly indicates she is getting her mother off the deed through deception, that she plans to sell the property without her knowledge. How do you explain that? Vance did not even flinch. Private conversations, Your Honor, illegally obtained. Mrs. Herrera violated my client's privacy by searching her phone without permission. Those messages should not be admissible as evidence. They were obtained by a concerned mother who suspected she was being defrauded, Mr. Miller interjected. There was no hacking, no theft. She simply looked at a phone left in her own home and she found proof of a crime. The judge continued to review documents. He asked more questions to both sides. I answered when it was my turn to speak. My voice was shaky, but clear. I told my story, how I trusted my daughter, how they deceived me, how I found out the truth. Sarah also spoke, with tears in her eyes, with a broken voice. She played the part of the wounded daughter, the victim of a manipulative mother who was now trying to extort her. My mother has always been like this, Your Honor. Always controlling, always wanting to have power over my life. We offered her a home, we gave her everything. And now she repays us with this lawsuit, with these horrible accusations. It hurts me. It hurts me so much that my own mother would think I'm capable of stealing from her. Her performance was perfect. She cried at just the right moment. Her voice trembled when it should. She looked at the judge with pleading eyes. And I saw how he watched her, how his expression softened just a little. And in that moment, I understood something. I understood that the truth does not always win. that sometimes the person who acts the best, who lies the best, who has the best lawyer, that is who wins. The hearing lasted 3 hours. At the end, the judge said he needed time to review all the evidence, that he would give his ruling in 2 weeks, that both parties should await his decision. We left the court in silence. Sarah and Mark left in their new car, a luxury BMW X5 that cost more than $80,000, purchased after I gave them my money. I left on the bus, as always. Mr. Miller walked me to the stop. How do you think it went? It went well, Mrs. Herrera. It went well. We have good evidence. The judge saw the inconsistencies. He saw the messages. I think we have a chance. But he was not sure. I could hear it in his voice, in how he avoided looking me directly in the eye. There was doubt, and that doubt terrified me. The next 2 weeks were the longest of my life. At home, the atmosphere was unbearable. Sarah did not speak to me at all. Mark looked at me with pure hatred. I ate in my room. I kept myself locked away most of the time, a ghost in my own house, but I kept documenting. I kept gathering evidence, just in case I needed to appeal, in case I had to keep fighting. Then the day came. Mr. Miller called me early in the morning. Mrs. Herrera, the judge has issued his ruling. My heart stopped. I waited. The seconds felt like hours. We won the first part. The judge has determined there is sufficient evidence of fraud. He has ordered a more in-depth investigation. And the best part, he has ordered a freeze on any attempt to sell the property until the case is fully resolved. I could not believe it. I had won something. Not everything, but something. The judge had believed me. He had seen the truth. What does that mean exactly? It means your daughter cannot sell the house. She cannot make any moves with the property without court approval. And it means we are going to a full trial. That's where we'll fight for the nullification of the documents and the return of your money. It was a small victory, but it was a victory. For the first time in months, I felt something like hope. When Sarah received the notification that afternoon, her reaction was explosive. I heard screaming from my room, things breaking, curses, Mark trying to calm her down. She was out of control. I went downstairs. I needed to see her face. I needed to see the moment she realized she was not going to get away with this so easily. She was in the living room, papers scattered everywhere, her face red, her fists clenched. This is your fault. This is all your fault. Now we can't sell. We can't do anything with this house because of you. It's my house too. I put my money into it, and I'm not going to let you sell it without getting back what's mine. I hate you. I hate you so much. I wish you had never come to live here. I wish you had stayed in your old house and left us in peace. I was in my house. You convinced me to sell it. You asked me for the money. You promised me this would be my home too. And you lied to me. So don't you dare tell me this is my fault. Get out. Get out now. I don't want you here. I'm not leaving. The judge ordered that you can't touch this property. That includes kicking me out. So, I'm staying, and I'm going to stay until this is resolved. I went up the stairs before she could answer. I went into my room. I locked the door. And for the first time in months, I allowed myself to smile. I had landed the first real blow. I had shown that I was not going to give up, that I was not going to let them walk all over me. And even though there was still a long way to go, even though the fight was just beginning, I had won this battle, and that was enough for now, enough to keep going, enough to keep fighting, enough to believe that maybe, just maybe, justice existed. I sat on my bed, I took out my phone, and I sent a message to Mr. Miller. Thank you for believing me, for fighting for me, for not giving up. His reply came quickly. Don't you give up, Mrs. Herrera. We're just getting started, and we are going to win. And I believed him, because I had no other choice, because I had come too far to turn back, because my dignity, my future, my life, it all depended on this. And I was not going to fail. Not now. Not after everything that had happened. Not after finding the strength I never knew I had. This was my fight, and I was going to win it, whatever it took. The following months were a quiet war. Sarah and Mark could not kick me out because of the judge's order. They could not sell the house. They were trapped with me as much as I was trapped with them. And it drove them crazy. They started with small, petty tactics, like not buying the things I used, my favorite coffee, my brand of bread. They said if I wanted those things, I had to pay for them myself. And I did, without complaining, without giving them the satisfaction of seeing me upset. They cut off the internet to my room. They said it was to save money, but theirs kept working perfectly. I went to the public library to use the computers when I needed to. I adapted. They changed the locks on some areas of the house, the basement, the garage, the study, as if marking territory, as if telling me, you don't belong here. And I let them, because those small battles did not matter. The big war was not over yet. But while they played those childish games, I kept gathering evidence, documenting everything. Every act of hostility, every attempt to make my life impossible, everything was recorded, everything was useful. Mr. Miller worked on the case. He filed more documents, more proof. He got testimonies from neighbors confirming that I lived there, that I took care of the house, that I had put money into the property. 6 months after the first hearing, the date for the full trial arrived. This time, it would be final. The judge would decide if the documents I signed were valid or if I had been a victim of fraud. He would decide if I got my money back or if I lost everything. I could not sleep the night before. I just stared at the ceiling thinking about all the possibilities. What would I do if I won? What would I do if I lost? How had my life come to this? The day of the trial dawned gray, overcast, as if the Ontario sky itself knew what was at stake. I dressed with care, the same suit I wore to the first hearing. My hands trembled as I buttoned it. The courtroom was fuller this time. There were more people, more witnesses. The case had drawn attention. A mother suing her daughter. A story of family betrayal. The kind of thing people find morbidly fascinating. Sarah arrived with a full team. Her lawyer, Mr. Vance, 2 legal assistants, Mark and his Rosedale parents, all dressed impeccably, all projecting success, power, money, trying to intimidate with their presence. I arrived alone with Mr. Miller, but I did not feel small. Not this time, because I knew I had the truth on my side, and that was worth more than all their money. The trial lasted 2 full days. Each side presented its arguments, its witnesses, its evidence. Mr. Vance brought in experts who analyzed my signature, who said it was authentic on all the documents, that I had signed knowingly. But Mr. Miller brought his own experts, handwriting experts who found inconsistencies, small differences in some signatures, different pressure in the strokes, slightly different angles, enough to create reasonable doubt. I took the stand. I told my full story with a firm voice, without crying, without being dramatic. Just the simple, painful truth. How I trusted my daughter, how they promised to include me in the property, how I discovered they had lied. Mr. Vance cross-examined me harshly, trying to make me look like a liar, like a manipulative mother looking for money. He asked why I did not read the documents before signing. Why did I trust so much? Why was I regretting it now? I don't regret trusting. I regret trusting the wrong people. A mother shouldn't have to read the fine print when her daughter asks for help. A mother should be able to trust that her own daughter isn't going to rob her. My answer hung in the silence of the room. I saw a few members of the jury nod slightly. I saw the judge make a note of my words. Then it was Sarah's turn. She took the stand in her expensive dress, her perfect makeup, her rehearsed performance. She cried. She said she loved me, that she never wanted to hurt me, that it was all a misunderstanding. I just wanted to help my mom, Your Honor, offer her a home. But she is very controlling. She wants to have power over everything. She signed those documents freely. And now that things didn't go the way she wanted, she's punishing us with this lawsuit. Her voice broke in all the right places. Her tears fell when they were supposed to. It was a masterful performance. And I saw how some in the room were moved, how they looked at her with sympathy. But then Mr. Miller did something brilliant. He projected the Instagram posts and the text messages onto a large screen. The conversations where she planned to get me off the deed, where she called me a problem, where she bragged about how easy it was to trick me. Miss Reyes, can you explain these messages? This one says, and I quote, "My mom is so naive. She signs anything I put in front of her." Those are your words, are they not? Sarah's face changed. The color drained away. She looked to her lawyer for help, but Mr. Vance could only object, saying the messages were obtained illegally. The judge had already admitted the evidence. It was too late to stop it. I was angry. I was frustrated. I didn't mean it literally. But you wrote it, you thought it, And more importantly, you executed it. You carried out a plan to defraud your own mother. It wasn't fraud, it was a gift that she now wants back. A gift that you plan to secure through deception. A gift that you plan to remove your mother from, without her knowledge, in order to sell the property. That, Miss Reyes, is not a gift. That is theft. Sarah did not know what to say. She just sat there staring at her lawyer, searching for the right words. But she could not find them, because there were no words that could explain what she had done. The trial continued. More witnesses, more documents, more arguments from both sides. But I knew the crucial moment had passed. When Sarah could not explain those messages, when she was exposed in front of everyone, the judge called a recess to deliberate. 3 hours that felt like 3 years. I waited on a bench outside the courtroom. Mr. Miller tried to calm me, to give me hope, but I was beyond hope. I was in a place of acceptance, ready for whatever came. Finally, they called us back in. We all took our places. The judge entered. His expression was serious, unreadable. I have reviewed all the evidence presented by both parties. I have heard the testimonies. I have analyzed the documents, and I have reached a conclusion. The silence in the room was absolute. No one breathed. No one moved. I find that there is sufficient evidence of fraud, that Mrs. Margaret Herrera was deceived by false promises into turning over her money, that she signed documents without a full understanding of their implications, and that there was a deliberate intent to exclude her from the rights to the property she helped purchase. My heart began to beat faster. Mr. Miller squeezed my hand. Therefore, I order the following. The documents signed by Mrs. Herrera waiving her rights are null and void. Mrs. Herrera is entitled to a 50% right to the property, or alternatively, a full reimbursement of the $150,000 she contributed, plus accrued interest, which amounts to another $25,000, for a total of $175,000. I had won. After months of fighting, of humiliation, of doubt, I had won. Justice did exist after all. Furthermore, I order that Miss Sarah Reyes and Mr. Mark Reyes pay Mrs. Margaret Herrera's legal costs. And I am imposing a $15,000 fine for intentional fraud against a vulnerable family member. I heard a choked gasp behind me. It was Sarah. Her face had lost all color. Mark was holding her arm. They both looked destroyed. The parties have 30 days to comply with this order, or we will proceed to seize your assets. Case closed. The gavel strike echoed like thunder, and with that sound it was all over. I had won. I had gotten my dignity back, my money, my life. I walked out of the court with my head held high. Mr. Miller was congratulating me, hugging me, celebrating the victory. But I felt strangely empty, because yes, I had won money, I had won justice, but I had lost my daughter, and that loss hurt more than all the money in the world. The 30 days the judge gave them to pay passed in unbearable tension. Sarah and Mark had to take out a loan, sell their new BMW, empty their savings accounts. Altogether, the $190,000, $175K for me plus my legal fees. I kept living in the house during that time, but it was different now. Now I had the power. Now they had to treat me carefully, because the judge had made it clear that any act of hostility could result in more sanctions. We did not talk. We passed each other in the hallways like ghosts, each in our own world, waiting for this nightmare to end. Though for each of us, the nightmare meant something different. The day I received the check was strange. There was no ceremony, no words. Mr. Vance came personally. He handed me the check, $190,000. I took it with hands that no longer trembled, that no longer doubted. "Thank you, Mr. Vance." He just nodded. He looked tired, defeated, as if this battle had cost him more than just time and effort. When he left, I looked at the check for a long time. This piece of paper represented my victory, my justice, but it also represented the definitive end of my relationship with my daughter, because after this, there was no going back. There was no way to repair what had been broken. That afternoon, I called a real estate agent. I asked him to help me find a small place, a one-bedroom condo, something simple, something mine, something no one could take from me. In 2 weeks, I found the perfect place. A condo in an old but well-maintained building in Midtown Toronto. It had a small kitchen, a full bathroom, a living room with a big window that let in the sun, and a tiny balcony that fit 2 flower pots. It cost $350,000. I bought it with the payout and the rest of my RRSPs. No mortgage, no debt, completely mine in my name, with a deed that I reviewed line by line with my own lawyer before I signed. On moving day, I hired 2 men to help me. I did not have much. My clothes, my books, my photos, the box of important documents, the plants from the balcony that I had cared for years, the ceramic mug David gave me. That was it. Sarah did not come out of her room when I left. There was no goodbye, no last hug, no words of reconciliation, just silence, a heavy silence that said more than 1,000 words. Mark was in the living room when I brought down my last box. He looked at me with something that might have been regret. Or maybe it was just relief that I was finally leaving. "Margaret, I'm sorry for everything, eh?" They were the only words he had spoken to me in months. I did not answer, because what could I say? That I forgave him? That everything was okay? When nothing was okay, when it would never be okay again, I just nodded, and I walked out that door for the last time. My new condo was small, quiet, empty, but it was mine. I spent the first night sitting on the floor, no furniture yet, with a hot cup of tea in my hands, looking out the window at the city lights, and I cried. I cried for everything I had lost, for the daughter I thought I had, for the family that never really existed, for the years wasted believing in empty promises. I cried until there were no tears left, until the pain became something more manageable, something I could live with. The following months were about rebuilding. I bought simple furniture, a bed, a small table, 2 chairs, a comfortable armchair for reading. Nothing expensive, nothing flashy, just what was necessary to live with dignity. I used some of the money left over to take a baking course at George Brown College, continuing ed, something I always wanted to do, but never had time for. I learned to make cakes, cookies, artisanal bread, butter tarts, and I discovered I had a talent for it. I started selling my products to neighbors, to little shops in the neighborhood. It was not much money, but it was mine, earned with my own effort, without depending on anyone, without owing anyone any favors. One afternoon, while I was watering my plants on the balcony, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I hesitated before answering, but something told me to. "Mom?" Sarah's voice hit me like a punch to the stomach. I had not spoken to her in 8 months. Not since the day I left her house. "Hello, Sarah." Silence on the other end. Heavy breathing, as if she were searching for the right words. I just wanted you to know that Mark and I are getting a divorce. He blames me for everything that happened, for losing the money, for the embarrassment, for everything. And I'm all alone, Mom. Everyone turned their back on me." Her voice broke. She started to cry. And part of me, that part that will always be her mother, wanted to comfort her. Wanted to tell her it would be okay, that I forgave her, that we could start over. But another part of me, the part that had been betrayed, robbed, and humiliated, that part held firm. "I'm sorry for what you're going through, Sarah. I truly am. But I can't be your support right now, not after everything. But you're my mom. You're all I have. And you were my daughter. You were all I had. And you robbed me. You betrayed me. You made me feel like I was worthless. So no, I can't be what you need right now. Maybe someday, but not now. Mom, please, take care of yourself, Sarah. I wish you the best. I really do, but I need time, a lot of time." I hung up before she could answer. Before my resolve could weaken, I turned off the phone, and I just stood there shaking, crying, but also feeling strong. Because I had set a boundary, because I had chosen my own peace over guilt. More months passed. Fall turned to winter, winter to spring. Life went on. I made new friends in the building. Women my age, widows, divorcees, women with their own stories of pain and survival. We had tea together on Thursdays. We shared recipes. We laughed. We lived. One April afternoon, I was on my balcony watering the plants when I saw something that made me smile. One of the succulents I had brought from Sarah's house had bloomed. A small, pink, delicate flower. It had survived the transplant, the change, and now it was blooming more beautifully than before. And I realized that I was like that plant. I had been torn from where I thought my home was. I had been hurt. They almost destroyed me. But I survived. I adapted. And now I was blooming again. In my own space, in my own soil, at my own pace. That night, I made myself a simple dinner. Vegetable soup, homemade bread, herbal tea. I sat at my small table by the window. I ate slowly, savoring every bite, grateful for every peaceful moment. I did not have much. I did not have the big house. I did not have the perfect family. I did not have the dreams I once imagined. But I had something better. I had my dignity. I had my peace. I had my freedom. And I had the satisfaction of knowing I did not stay silent, that I did not let them trample me, that I fought for what was mine. Before bed, I wrote a few lines in my journal, something I had started doing as therapy, and I wrote the most important truth I had learned through this whole process. I did not win because I shouted louder. I won because I proved the truth. I did not stoop to their level. I did not fill myself with hatred. I just presented the facts, and that hurt them more than any insult. That is my victory. Not having become what they were to me, not having lost my essence in the process of getting my life back. I closed the journal, I turned off the light, and I lay down in my bed, in my condo, in my home, and for the first time in years, I slept soundly. No nightmares, no fears, just peace. Because I had closed that door. Not for revenge, not for hatred, but for love. Self-love. The kind of love I had forgotten I deserved. The kind of love that no daughter, no son-in-law, no false promise could ever take from me. And that was enough. It was more than enough. It was everything.